With this, our main powerful rank.
Morning. Good morning.
Well, on one hand, Zelensky promises peace by winter and has instructed Budanov to prepare it. On the other hand, preparations are underway for an even longer war. Today, we'll assess where the balance lies and which direction all this is heading. Let's take the bull by the horns and without delay see what's going on with peace first. So here's what we have regarding peace. In short, Budanov, who is currently the head of the president's office, considers Zelensky's assessment about the window of opportunity for negotiations with Russia to end the war before winter begins to be realistic. He said this during a press conference. Budanov stated, "I fully agree with Zelensky's assessment.
A little digression.
This is the president's directive to try to end this war as soon as possible, and I confirm this. In fact, there is an attempt to end the fighting as soon as possible, preferably before winter. And he himself stated that while serving as the head of the president's office, he would do everything possible to achieve this peace. Zelensky himself said that yes, we need to negotiate, we need to sit down at the negotiating table. But, as always, throughout all of this, there was a clear reference to Russia, and as usual, the reference had a negative connotation. As for the other side, Russia, Putin set the conditions for a meeting with Zelensky a long time ago. But, by the way, back on May 9th, he stated that he sees the possibility of peace, and therefore it seems like a meeting with Zelensky could happen. Nevertheless, as always, there's a catch. Putin says Zelensky is ready for a personal meeting. I've heard that before. It's not the first time. And in this regard, I can say that we have never refused, I have not refused, I am not the one proposing this meeting. But if someone is proposing, that's fine. Let the person who wants to meet come. Let them come to Moscow, we can meet, or we can meet in a third country. But only if final agreements are reached on a peace treaty, which should be designed for a long-term historical perspective, to put an end to this whole matter. And here, of course, the overwhelming influence of two factors arises. The first is that Zelensky will not go to Moscow under any circumstances. The second is that any final agreements are as far away from them as probably that very Alpha Centauri I mention in almost every episode. It's hard to say what might come out of all this, but most likely nothing, since even Trump, just today I read about it. The news is that Trump is so tired of the complicated negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. It's interesting, did he expect simple negotiations like just walking in and saying Volodya, peace, like that Sibiga guy, peace with Rus ranks, or peace just talking? And then peace comes immediately, because everyone is instantly scared of those words. In general, nothing good will come of it, with or without jokes. Then literally that was on May 9, but literally from June 1, Putin addressed the investigation into the Ukrainian armed forces' strike on the Starobelsk college building during a meeting. It seems that deliberately, very deliberately, by committing a grave crime against children and teenagers at the pedagogical college in Starobelsk, the Kiev leadership has decided to open a new chapter in their series of crimes. Well, that's their choice. And he added that this gives a new quality to the conflict as a whole. Zelensky started warning residents that there would be problems, that Caliber missiles were coming, that two bombers were coming. I mean, not Tushki as in Jerboas, but two, the strategic bombers launching ballistic missiles at Ukraine. And these drones are still coming. There are several dozen, maybe even hundreds. And right now, as I'm recording this video, I'm reading the news at the same time. They say there's a big fire at the impact site in Dnipro and a fire in Zaporizhia. There are already eyewitnesses, and obviously this is news. The night was not easy. This video was recorded at night, and all of this is a prolonged attack over time. As for how much this smells like peace, I think it doesn't smell like peace at all. And it's no coincidence that earlier Zelensky secretly gave an order to his office, so that they would prepare a plan to continue the war for another 2 or 3 years. In other words, that statement about peace by winter clearly carries a bit less weight for Ukraine. For both the Ukrainian and Russian authorities, especially compared to the promise to extend the war by 2 or 3 years. And then suddenly Gherkin, also known as Strelkov, bursts into the thread. Remember, the one who entered Ukraine and started all the chaos, which, as far as I recall, turned into the ATO. That was quite unexpected. Now he's in prison. I don't even remember what for. And while sitting in prison, he sometimes analyzes what's happening at the front. I don't know him as an analyst, to be honest, so I can't say anything about that. But here he talks about the possibility of an attack on Crimea. In my previous video, I literally talked about the possibility of an attack on the Crimean bridge. Many analysts from Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and the US are already talking about this. It's strange that commentators disagree, because an attack, purely from a military point of view, on such an important military and economic artery, it seems reasonable, specifically from a military point of view. Why people don't understand that this really could happen with a high degree of probability, I also don't understand. But it seems that Strelkov-Gherkin does understand. And he says that in the past week, the land corridor to Crimea, the transportation through it, has been regularly attacked by the AFU. Due to disruptions in logistics on the peninsula, there are interruptions in fuel supplies, and then he says that all of this is called isolation. The battlefield is isolated by cutting the enemy's lines of communication deep behind their lines. Well, since both civilian and military cargoes are transported along the route, the AFU may be interested in stopping the supply of both. And again, here he says that all this may indirectly indicate that the AFU is preparing an offensive towards Crimea. The battlefield is being isolated, making it impossible to quickly transfer reserves and supplies, and this doesn't necessarily mean that an attack will definitely happen. But it is quite possible. That's why he says we should expect in the near future, in June, a possible attempt by the AFU to attack Crimea, land troops, or make a push across the Dnipro. In this relatively poorly supplied direction. How true or likely this is, I don't know. But again, it seems quite logical, especially if you look at the number of news reports about the bombing of that very land artery, right in that direction. Write in the comments everything you think about this, because this topic is important for many people. And again, if the armed forces really attack either the Crimean bridge or attempt to attack Crimea, this will lead to an escalation of the war to a level that probably hasn't happened yet. That is, even all those stockpiles that were deeply buried somewhere in the depths of Siberian mines will suddenly get a second life. I mean some kind of missiles. Not nuclear ones yet, I hope. And the word yet, again I hope, is rhetorical here, so to speak, and not... Well, anyway, let's not move on to the darkest scenarios. And all of this could be launched again at Ukraine. Let's hope they will still come to an agreement. There's not much hope by winter, but still. The most interesting thing is that, in order to continue, by the way, there is some information here about the economy. Again, I don't know. Not sure how much you can trust it. It says here that the central bank and the Ministry of Finance have warned Putin that military expenses are too much for the Russian budget. A lot has been said here. Both the Ministry of Defense and representatives of the Kremlin don't want to cut the budget. Some want to, some don't. But the fact is that only if oil is at $100 or higher does the Russian budget get high revenues, which allows Russia to wage war with relatively few problems. And here Trump gave a gift because he suddenly got into another argument. That never happened before. And once again he got into another argument with Iran, and Iran is suspending negotiations with the US. Tehran has decided to completely close the Hormuz Strait. The reason was that fighting intensified in Lebanon. After that, as I read today, Trump spoke with Lebanon through intermediaries and also spoke with Israel. And it seems like they stopped the fighting. How long it will last is unknown. But, you know, both sides and in general the Middle East itself, which is dear to many, nothing good is expected there in the near future. Nevertheless, if they reached an agreement here, maybe prices will drop soon. But now they jumped up by 5 at once and exceeded that very $100 mark, which makes it possible for Russia to continue the war for quite a long time. So everything is coming together on that side too. They gave Ukraine 90 billion euros. Russia's oil prices are rising and budget revenues are increasing. That's why the war can go on, if not forever, then until the first major global economic crisis. After that, apparently people will fight with sticks, stones, and whatever else they can find. In general, it's all extremely complicated and confusing. In light of the sudden rise in oil prices again, the European Union wants to freeze the price cap on Russian oil because of Iran, precisely for the reason that oil is becoming an extremely expensive and scarce commodity. The European Union is considering the possibility of temporarily freezing the price cap and has adopted a dynamic mechanism. This very bloc was prudent about it last year. A price cap is automatically set every 6 months at 15 below the average market price of Russian Urals oil. Right now the threshold is $44 per barrel. The next review is supposed to take place in the summer. Well, I mean, it's already June now, the 2nd, I think. So anything can happen. Oil prices have risen sharply. According to the sources during the July review, the level would most likely be raised to at least $65. A freeze would keep the cap at its current level. Other options include suspending the automatic increase until the end of the year. And then it's sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. But that's it. This will probably be frozen. Because the European Union at least doesn't want to fall apart in the foreseeable future. Fuel is everything. From oil, they make gasoline, diesel fuel, and fuel oil. They make all sorts of things from it, including, of course, the vast majority of organic chemical elements, materials, and so on and so forth, without which modern life is impossible. And even more so, waging war would also be extremely difficult. But here's something interesting. The fact is, earlier they implemented an import substitution program in Ukraine, let's say, by replacing Ukrainian men with immigrants. But not everyone is happy about this. For example, there are citizens, including some quite high-ranking military officials, who say that this won't lead to anything good.
Labor migration is a disaster in the long run. That is, today Ukrainians who can't work because of the war, because they're hiding from the draft boards and so on, they can't even work, say, in construction or in some subcontracting jobs, and they're being replaced by Pakistanis, Indians, and others.
Well, yes, most Ukrainians simply aren't able to work right now for a number of reasons. Also, the draft boards stop people on the street. There are simply no jobs, or there are other reasons. But instead, we invite Pakistanis and say, let's work. And by the way, I posted news in my Telegram channel that these very migrants don't want to go, for example, to Kharkiv and the Kharkiv region to work, even for big money. Well, simply because they're afraid for their lives. And here I'd like to hear from these people again. Powerful leaders who talk about human life being the greatest value, but at the same time send everyone to the front lines. You're an assault trooper, you're also an assault trooper, and you're an assault trooper, everyone to the front, let's all go forward. Some are sent to build fortifications, which is also practically done right on the front line. And now people are already saying, well, what are you even doing?
Well, if this trend continues and it's following this tragic path, then in 30 years we'll lose our authenticity because there will be 6 Indian children for every Ukrainian student in schools here.
Well, here's the prediction from Denis Yaroslavsky himself that in 30 years there will be 6 Indian children for every Ukrainian student. Well, that's an interesting prediction. I don't know how he calculated that. Of course, I doubt those are any serious calculations. But the way almost unlimited migration is happening, we've already seen that in some European countries. And the fact that, again, in some European countries, a certain name has become the most popular one. Sorry for repeating myself so often. This word is popular in Muslim circles, and that also says a lot. And we
will run into a catastrophe like this, just like Britain, France, and Germany have now. Currently, we're winning the war against the Russians, but losing demographically.
Well, yes, you'll win, but don't count your chickens before they hatch. First, win this war. By the way, Denis Yaroslavsky clearly struggles with Ukrainian. There's a huge amount of Russian text slipping through, and again, the pronunciation is also Russian. That's why I think that in everyday life, the language, the muva, is probably used somewhere else in other places, but definitely not by this representative of the AFU. And he says that people are unhappy with what's happening. Well, I think the soldiers who are on the front lines are extremely unhappy too, who were sent away, basically separated from their native lands. Some may have gone voluntarily. And they see how Ukrainians are suddenly being replaced. Their positions are being filled by migrants. It looks quite unusual, to say the least. These actions by the Ukrainian authorities are unlikely to be approved by the public. So, well, what of it? And let's see who among our exemplary Pobretim workshop wants to speak up. First, probably he'll invite everyone who's here. And Ilyinsky, of course.
Well then.
Let's hear from the clowns. Go ahead, comrades. Yes, and comrades who are not really our comrades march in formation to tell us what they are and how they see the future of humanity. For example, here we have By City, From Serginochka in the car. If anyone knows what kind of car it is, let me know. Well, I don't know. Is this car expensive or cheap? She says she was a clerk, a guide, and polished cartridges during the war. That's interesting. Polishing cartridges is a specialty. Okay, does this work? Military enlistment office? Assault enlistment office? No.
Thank you.
Here is this girl with keratin straightened hair. On the left is also the powerful B-City, who conducts interviews with all these Cossack-like people. Maybe it's her hobby, or maybe she wants to go to the front herself but just can't get there. But this is already the third or fourth video like this with her that we've seen. Huge thanks to the person who sends these videos right now.
Well, I don't know. I can't do it any other way. I just can't be any other way. I believe this is a fight for everyone.
Ah, well, of course. When you're sitting in a car with, I don't know, leather seats or not, and you're smiling broadly, it's obvious. Everyone here is smiling. On the left, on the right, and I'm smiling too. It's a bit forced, honestly, but still. Yeah, it's like Fomenko used to say, smile, it annoys everyone.
You always get right to the truth. I can just see you storming the draft office, right?
Storm the TCK. Janechka looks just right, yeah, she apparently has the ability to storm the TCK especially, like some important Pokemon with that ability. And there were a bunch of girls, she says you'll be yelling, like at the clerk, you'll be yelling importantly. And what happened next?
It seems you'll be basically a clerk in the Rao, you'll be basically a boss in the Maserati.
Honestly, I don't know what a clerk has to do with polishing bullets, or why you even need to polish bullets at all. If you're in the military, please write in the comments why you need to polish bullets. For me, it brings up completely different associations. Let's not talk about them right now. But still, the statement is extremely interesting. For a clerk to sit and polish, let's say, bullets, that's wonderful. She was just joking around. Still, she was there. Well, yeah. They were joking around, let's put on our power glasses, because this flow of information, let's put it this way, will sweep away like the bodies of the buried representatives of respected India.
Dilovodom. Since our first combat warning was in Harbin, I served as record keeper and guide.
Who was she? What did she do? What kind of guide? They told her you're a record keeper, but she was already acting as some kind of guide. Like Susanen, but likely the opposite.
Now I remember she used to lead and take out the guys.
And polish the cartridges.
From your position, what kind of victory do you see at the present time? Subtitles, this is still...
That's not my music, it's the girl's music that turned on. It would be interesting if it's some kind of Russian music. Maybe, of course, it's her neighbors behind the wall who turned on the music, but nevertheless, it makes you think about certain things. For the Cossack song, the sister on the right wondered where to refuel.
I saw only one victory. We are destroying the enemy as much as possible, and we will return to our territory.
Now she is already destroying the enemy. Clark, Polisher, I don't know what this position is called, Cartridges, Guide, Verpen. And now she's also destroying the enemy?
I just don't want anyone else. I want someone like her.
I see. Well, yeah, it's like in that really beautiful, what was the name of that Soviet movie? You look in the mirror, formulate your thought, send it out into the universe, and then carry out your plan, which again helps the universe make it happen. It's like transfer, reality transurfing, but just without a doctor. So, do we have anyone else here? O'Melian, suddenly a draft dodger, ran away.
Yeah, I guess it depends.
Let me remind you who this person is. In short, he was the Minister of Transport in Ukraine. He was involved with the Hyperloop, Elon Musk's Hyperloop project, a special transportation project. Naturally, money got spent, but of course the Hyperloop never appeared in Ukraine. Then suddenly he became a soldier, and suddenly, as he claimed, his bone was broken. And to treat this injury, he or someone else wrapped his leg with 2 layers of bandage. And he took pictures of all this, shaved, well-groomed, without the slightest sign of swelling or any other consequences. Well, that's pretty serious and painful. He got in touch, and then he was charged in Ukraine with suspicion of evading military service. Now he's promising these patriotic statements from the UK. Well, what can I say? As Zaluzhny said, degradation, degradation.
With Trump in the special elections this spring, we will see increased American support, not a relaxation.
Yeah, wonderful. This Amelian even has visions for 7 generations ahead. Just wonderful. We also have this one, but don't laugh. This, I don't even know who this is, what kind of curly Sue is that. But she says that Oreshnik or Ureshnik, it's still not proven what kind of weapon that is. Well, you see, a broad profile specialist with such a wide, complicated face that you could scare waiters in restaurants with it. And she says that Oreshnik, it's unknown what kind of weapon that is.
Attack as intensively as possible. If we can advance, we move forward and push them back. That's it.
Without glasses, with all that power, I don't get what's being discussed, what's going on, or why he's in the studio in military uniform. But I feel the need to set up that camouflage net for myself too, just in case someone notices.
We destroy, even within the resources we have. But how is this accompanied? Right now, we're like decision-making centers. We're there. Take away diplomatic representations and so on.
Because for those who don't understand Ukrainian, sorry, I won't translate. I don't understand anything either. It's just some kind of hard-to-translate set of words. It seems like individually they make sense, you can translate them, but together they don't make any sense.
So you'll fly Oreshnik something else. By the way, it's not proven that Oreshnik is a medium-range missile.
It's not proven that Oreshnik is a medium-range missile. The journalist even looked down. It was so powerful that, damn, what a loser.
That Oreshnik can fly that far hasn't been proven, and it also hasn't been proven to be a medium-range missile. They just present it that way.
Yeah, well, obviously it's not proven. I don't know. Maybe they're launching it with catapults or a trebuchet, or someone is standing abroad throwing it like paper airplanes. Apparently that's how it works, in his opinion. In general, something strange is going on, but at least we have a camouflage net, and nothing under the moon can scare us, and everything is eternal. Overall, that's all for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to the Telegram channel, which I haven't promoted yet today. See? So I don't have to keep reminding you. Goodbye, everyone.
The resource of our state. These are the key criteria that are now an integral part of victory. And we have the example of a country like Israel, which is fighting, developing its economy, and again, developing tourism. Well, and Russia, in principle, will collapse. If it doesn't collapse, obviously, we will be doomed to keep preparing for war. It's clear that today, we have to plan for the long term in this war.